Well, my name is Austin. I'm the lead pastor here at Tekoa. If we have not met, I want to say welcome to you. I would love to meet you. After service, we do a hangout in the coffee lounge. I'd love to meet you if it's your first time here with us. And today as we gather, this is not just a church service. This is a family. If you don't have one, we would love to adopt you into one, into ours. Life is full of both challenges and celebrations. We're going to talk about especially some of the challenges today, but we believe God has created us to experience it all, both the good and the bad in community. Our faith journey is not meant to be lived alone. And so if you are looking for a community, we want to say to you, welcome home. And the reality is there's always the possibility of things not working out ideally in life. And today we are starting a new series today called Lion versus Lion. I've had this on my mind a long time. And it comes from a personal word that God gave me. Matter of fact, when I was right up here in worship on the Sunday that we started this church a year and a half ago, with our grand opening, God gave me just a picture of Him as a lion in our city. And so I'm excited to share more about that throughout this series with you, and how this applies to your life, not just our church. But my message today is titled, Hear the Lion Roar. Hear the Lion Roar. It's just fun to have a title like that, and a graphic like that. I'm excited for this series. And we're going to talk today about one of my favorite passages in the Bible. It comes from Daniel chapter 3. It's not actually Daniel. It's three guys, Shadrach, Meshach, Abednego, and the fiery furnace. Man, I love preaching on this passage. Every time, literally this morning, I was reading through it again in my prep, and God showed me something new in it. I just love this story. And I thought it was a little bit ironic, though, that I'm preaching on the fiery furnace and the heat today, when it's like the coldest week of the year here in San Jose. Matter of fact, yesterday, our family went on an adventure. It felt like we were hitting roadblock after roadblock, literally yesterday, to go find snow for my girls. And we ended up finally in a field with enough snow that we built a Tekoa snowman. And they got to experience a little bit of, I grew up in Minnesota. That's sort of snow. Where I grew up with, it's a little bit different. But it was good. I'm grateful for the cool. I'm grateful to not be in the furnace. But before we get to the story of the furnace, let me share about this lion versus lion thing. We're going to spend more time on this throughout this series, but let me give us a little bit of an overview today as we get started. Revelation chapter 5 says, "Weep no more. Behold, the Lion of the tribe of Judah, the Root of David, has conquered, so that he can open the scroll and its 7 seals. And between the throne and the 4 living creatures and among the elders, I saw a lamb standing as though it had been slain, with 7 horns and with 7 eyes, which are the 7 spirits of God sent out into all the earth." I'm not going to get into all of some of that crazy detail today. But what I want us to start with today is this Revelation chapter 5, verse 5 says, "The Lion of the tribe of Judah." And the lion is Jesus. He comes from the tribe of Judah. He comes from the line, literally, of King David, who was of the tribe of Judah. That's why he's the Lion of the tribe of Judah. And Judah, all the way back in Genesis 49, was prophesied that Judah would be the tribe that had all the rulers of God's people. And not only that, it was prophesied in Genesis 49 that Judah was called the Lion. And so Jesus is in that lineage, and in Revelation we see him as the Lion of the tribe of Judah. If you've ever heard that in the church or in a worship song, you now know where that comes from. It comes from right here, the Lion of the tribe of Judah, to be in the house that would rule, to be the conquering lion. But the truth is, the closer we get to God, the more that we're partnering with God in the work He's doing here in this world, the battle is raging around us, the spiritual battle, and the more that we're partnering with what God is doing, the enemy, the devil, does not get excited about that reality. And he's going to try to keep us from doing what God wants us to do and what God is doing and the good that God is doing. And so 1 Peter 4 shows us something else. It says, "Humble yourselves, therefore, under the mighty hand of God, so that at the proper time He may exalt you, casting all your anxieties on Him because He cares for you." Cast your anxieties on Him. "Be sober-minded, be watchful. Your adversary, the devil, prowls around like a roaring lion, seeking someone to devour. Resist him, firm in your faith, knowing that the same kinds of suffering are being experienced by your brotherhood throughout the world. And after you have suffered a little while, the God of all grace, who has called you to his eternal glory in Christ, will himself restore, confirm, strengthen, and establish you. There is an enemy. It's a reality. We don't always see it. Sometimes we see it where it doesn't exist too, but we don't always see it. But there's an enemy prowling around like what? Like a lion. Wait, I thought Jesus was the lion. But see, the enemy is very smart, and he imitates the lion who is Jesus. Of course, he would take that form. Why would he pick something else when he could pick that and confuse us and scare us and make us afraid of the roar of the lion that is supposed to be inspiring to us because it's our Savior and it is our Lord who is providing for us, and instead we get afraid of the roar of the lion? We must be careful which roar we are listening to in our lives. Fear, anxiety, lack of trust that it talks about here in 1 Peter are some of the primary weapons that the enemy uses, and we're going to look at a passage where those are very much on display. We often face hardship and trials, and that's the work of the enemy. He is there prowling, it says, ready to devour. So don't be deceived. Don't give in. Resist him is what Peter says. Let's look at Daniel chapter 3, where there are going to be three guys that give us some examples of how we are to do this and what this looks like in our lives even. Even though I don't think any of us are going to face a fiery furnace in our lives, I think there's some principles here because we do face challenges in life. So I'm not going to read all of it here, but just a background here. So this is the time of Babylon is ruling. Even if you look at world history, this is what has happened. Babylon is taking over the Middle East and beyond as the power of the day. And King Nebuchadnezzar is so powerful, and he says, you know what, I'm basically a god, and I'm going to create an image, and everybody is going to bow down and worship to this image. But there were some Jews who got taken from their homeland in Israel and taken to Babylon, who were there, and they said, I'm not going to bow down to this image because I worship God in heaven. I don't worship Nebuchadnezzar, and so I'm not going to bow down. And so certain people, the Chaldeans, it says, didn't like this, and they got excited because they didn't like the Jewish people, and they said, here's our opportunity. The ones we really don't like, we're going to take them out, and we're going to call them out, and the king has decreed that if anybody doesn't bow down and worship, they go into the furnace and die. And they thought as their opportunity, said, we're going to call out these Jews, and we're going to get to send them away and get them killed, and we can get rid of them. This is our opportunity to get rid of them. And they were picked because they weren't liked. They were picked out of the crowd. And that's the battle that sometimes we fight. And we feel that. I don't know if you've ever felt that way. Like, why am I the one that got singled out here? That's the word I keep trying to say. Why do I get singled out? Why me? Out of everybody around, why was I the one that was picked? Like, I wasn't even the worst offender here. Like, why was it me? Because I guarantee you, these three guys weren't the only ones that didn't bow down. Like, there's only one image, and it's a huge city of probably millions of people. Like, they weren't the only ones that didn't go into the square and bow down to the image. They were called out. And they probably thought, why is it me that's called out? And maybe even it was because God had been elevating them. They had just gotten to be officials, the three of them, over the province of Babylon, the most important, influential province of the empire. They got to be officials of it. And so they got singled out. They got authority and power, and when it came, then they got attacked. And they probably were like, but God, we finally got into a place to do something, and then now we're getting taken away from it, and we're getting called out. They get power, and the enemy says, let me get these guys removed. Nebuchadnezzar, the king, is mad because they don't worship his image. He tells them, this is true. Is it true? Are you not willing to worship? Here's your chance. I like you guys. You're doing good things for my empire. Let me give you one more shot. You can bow down right now. If you're ready to worship, now's your chance. And let's pick up the story. We'll read what happened. I will give you one more chance, he says, to bow down and worship the statue I have made when you hear the sound of the musical instruments. But if you refuse, you will be thrown immediately into the blazing furnace. And then what God will be able to rescue you from my power? Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego replied, "O Nebuchadnezzar, we do not need to defend ourselves before you. If we are thrown into the blazing furnace, the God whom we serve is able to save us. He will rescue us from your power, your majesty. But even if he doesn't, we want to make it clear to you, your majesty, that we will never serve your gods or worship the gold statue you have set up." He gives them one more chance, but if you refuse, you will be thrown in. I want to invite us to stop for a minute. What fiery furnaces do you face? Because I don't think any of us are facing a literal one like these guys were. Maybe with your friends, maybe with your family, maybe with your job, or you lost your job, or your finances, or an addiction, or sin, or your temper, or your retirement, or your 5-year plan, or your 1-year plan. What furnace are you facing like these guys were, that they're tempted to go a different way than they knew that they were supposed to do? Are you trusting in your strength, or are you bowing out of your fear, or are you trusting in faith? When Allie and I moved to San Jose, we came here because God said to plant a church. But we knew it wasn't start the church day one, but we said, okay, we're here on faith. And we came here and we had some things lined up that didn't work out, especially for me. But we kept trusting on faith. And I said, you know what? I was in sales before. I can do sales again for a season as we're trusting what God does next. And I went to an interview and got hired on the spot and was like, okay, God, this was like the easiest hire I've ever had. And so I started doing sales in the HVAC industry for heating and air conditioning. And I wish I could help out with that right now. But I do what I can. And I was in that industry, and I had worked in sales before, and it was a tough job, but I really believed in my company. I really believed in our product, and it was an awesome opportunity where I got to help people, help my company, and even help myself. Like, everybody was winning. But when I got in sales here, I started selling, and I didn't believe in my company because I would sell a product, and then my people would go in to install the product, and they would do a horrible job. And I was like, man, I don't know if I can sell this. Like I'm not going to lie to the customer of, oh, it's going to be awesome, they're going to do a great job, you're going to have a great product. Like, I'm starting to not believe in this anymore the more of these I see. And then I started to see that not only that, but I would literally hear lies come out of my boss's mouth to customers on the phone or in different situations. And I came in this situation, and Allie and I started praying, like, what do we do? You know, because it's expensive here in the Bay Area. Like, I needed a job. And we just felt in prayer that, okay, it's time to move in faith for you to take something else and do something else. We said, okay. And I think even my boss was really, really confused because as we discerned and made that decision, I even had this sale that had been pending for a while. And like the day I quit, I finished and closed that sale, even though I would never get commission from it because I wasn't around to keep the commission anymore. And I think my boss was like, what weird person leaves this way? And I was like, I wish I could tell you it's a Christian. That's what person leaves this way. They leave well. They don't just burn all the bridges on their way out. And now I also want to caution, we were very specific about our prayer and knowing that this is what we felt like God was doing, because I've seen too many people in certain generations especially just quit their job without having something else lined up because they don't like what they're doing. That's not wise, that's not smart either, but we very intentionally did this so that we could be ready for what God had, the next thing. Because we believed, hey, I can't lie to customers. I can't lie to my boss. I can't be a part of this because this is not who I am and who God has created to me. And I'm going to trust that He will provide for my family, even if it doesn't look like it's happening right now. And this is what our enemy does. He creates fear. He attacks and he makes us try to compromise our faith in God. He comes and he says, just bow down to me like these guys. It's okay. You don't have to mean it. Just bow down. Just maybe do the outward actions. Like, I'm pretty sure there was a whisper in these guys' ears like, should we just do it? Like, we know that we really still believe in God and worship Him. Like, we can bow down and like, we'll just pretend we're bowing down to God even though we're like in front of the statue here. Like, I know that whisper was in their ears and went through their thoughts. Or maybe, I guess I don't know that. I know that it would have gone through mine if I was in their shoes. Maybe they were better guys than I am. But do we have faith when we don't know what God's going to do? Faith when we don't know how it's going to turn out? Faith when it's easier to walk away and give up? Faith when it's easier to just go with the flow? Faith to stand strong in our convictions and not our fears? The enemy is going to make it, Peter said this, as fearful as possible and create anxiety. But we can either take that anxiety to God, or we can take that anxiety and bow down to it and give in to it. And these guys say, I believe in God and what He's going to do. Fear is present for them. Fear is present for us. Our enemy prowls around like a roaring lion waiting to devour. He uses anxiety. He uses suffering. There are two of the primary ways he uses to get us to bow down, to just slowly say, you know what, this is a little bit easier. God must be wanting this path. I'm sure these guys said, we just got elevated to this position of authority. Like, obviously God wouldn't want us to lose that. We'll just bow down and go with the flow, and that way we don't lose the influence that we got to help God in His kingdom. No, they said, we're going to trust God no matter what, and we're not going to give in to what He might want to do. They have such a faith that there is just not even a temptation for them in this. And I want to just share with us, it didn't make it into my notes this morning. Here, let me just pull it up here. All right, Ezekiel 23, verse 25. It's not going to be on the screens because it didn't quite sync with the computer. But I want you to see what these guys went through. You know what? Just bear with me for a second here, because I think this is important. Yeah, I'm getting ahead of myself. All right, so Daniel, he says this in verse 20. Then he ordered some of the strongest men of the army to bind Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego and throw them into the blazing furnace. This is what Nebuchadnezzar did. So they tied them up and threw them into the furnace, fully dressed in their pants, turbans, robes, and other garments. Right? He said, immediately, I'm going to do this. Immediately he did it. And because the king, in his anger, had demanded such a hot fire in the furnace, the flames killed the soldiers as they threw the three men in. And I want to point out something in this story. I want to point out the wrong answer, the answer of these three men, the king's mighty men. See, they were so afraid of the king that they followed his instructions to take the Hebrews up to the furnace and throw them in, and they were so afraid of not doing that right that they end up dying in the flames of the fire. Their fear was in the wrong place. Their fear was over the king, and they ended up dying for it instead of fearing the God of the universe. They feared the wrath of the king and what he would do. This might be a little more extreme than any of us are facing today, but how many of you have seen something maybe at your work that's wrong or sinful? How many of your coworkers are just, I'm going to go along with it so I don't stick out? How many of you in your family, or you've been, I've been in this spot, and it's so hard to know what's the loving thing to do when you're in a group of friends, or, you're just out with people that aren't even Christian, and the conversation just goes somewhere, or the gossip starts, or whatever it is, and they start talking about something, and you're like, I know that this is not the right way to talk. And how do we just go along with it? Do you speak life and love into the situation? How do we respond, or do we just go with the flow? Do you fear the roar of the lion, our enemy, or do you trust the roar of the Lion of Judah, that he is victorious no matter what? So let's back up a minute before we finish the story of these guys. It says, if we are thrown, they say, into the blazing furnace, the God whom we serve is able to save us. He will rescue us from your power, your majesty. But even if he doesn't, we want to make it clear to you, your majesty, that we will never serve your gods or worship the gold statue you have set up. I love how respectful they are in the middle of this. Like, we're just going to keep, your majesty, we respect that you're in the position of authority. We're acknowledging that, even though we don't follow. They keep going with it. I will trust no matter what they say, even if it doesn't go as I want. And this line is so crucial. It stuck out to me. It stuck out to me for years now. Matter of fact, even in Rooted, I noticed this week, I remember that they picked this passage, and they talk about it in Rooted too. It's such an important passage and such an important line. The faith that says, on one hand, God can save us. We believe in him, his powerful works. We trust in him. He can even do miracles. The other says that even if he doesn't provide in this way, we will trust him into death. Because he is still God. Because I would rather lose my life here than keep it for eternity than the other way around. I believe, and whether God moves on my behalf how I want him to, how I think is best, or he does something else, I will trust him either way. We will trust in him alone. And real faith is trusting him when things don't seem to work out, even. Blind faith is saying that things always work out perfectly and great and how I want, and it will always be roses and good and life like that. Real faith says, through the good and through the bad, I trust because I know who my God is, and that he's good, and that he loves me, and that he's at work, and that he has a plan. And these guys knew their scriptures. And what I think makes their decision even more powerful is that there was a prophecy that Ezekiel had made that the survivors of the exile, who these men are, see, some of the men would see Babylon came in, they conquered Israel, and then some people survived and some people got to stay, but most of them got carted off to other parts of the empire. That's how they prevented rebellions. And Ezekiel prophesied this is going to happen, and he said this as well, and that God will direct his jealousy against you, that they may deal with you in fury. They shall cut off your nose and your ears, and your survivors shall fall by the sword. They shall seize your sons and your daughters, and your survivors shall be devoured by what? By fire. There was a prophecy that they were in the middle of living out, and God would bring redemption. It wasn't a just judgment and then there was nothing that's going to happen. God was going to bring redemption to the people of Israel, but they were still living out the middle of this, and it was prophesied that people would die by fire. They went trusting God into the fire, but I think they also had a strong sense that God said that many of us are going to literally die by fire, and here I am about to get thrown into a furnace. I don't think they had a high chance that they thought God was going to save them from the flames, but they didn't care. They said, we're going to trust him anyways because I believe in him. And some of us have put God in this box that we want to control him, and we tell him, I'll be faithful, God, if. I will trust you, God, if. These men didn't put any conditions on God, even knowing that it probably wasn't going to work out how they wanted. Unto death, they committed to be faithful. They prayed, they sought for God's provision. They didn't want to die, but they said, even if I do, it's okay. They prayed that God would perform a miracle. They told the king that they were hoping that God would, but they said, even if he doesn't, even if it doesn't work out how I want, that we will trust. They had faith and they had trust in him no matter what. We need to trust in him. We need to submit to his will. And the problem is we hear the lions roar, but if we don't know which lion is roaring, it's easier to trust our eyes. It would have been much easier for them to say, there's a fire over there and it's really hot. Let me just, I gave God many chances to provide, and we got taken to a different country and we had to learn a new language, and we're here and we're brought before the king and we're bound and we're here. They trusted with their faith and not their eyes, no matter what. I want to encourage us to see and with eyes of faith. Don't give up. No matter what it looks like in front of you, don't give up. And I think this is the reality, that God's not done in our lives. And what I love is, I love stories that we see, what can happen when we don't give up. I like the story of Kevin Plank, who is the CEO of Under Armour, but I wouldn't have wanted to be him in 1995 because he was selling one product, one shirt, out of his garage, the basement, of his grandmother's home in Washington, D.C., with $40,000 in debt trying to make it. And it worked out in the end because he didn't give up, but he was in a difficult spot. Oprah went early in her career, got fired from the evening news show, and had to go back to the lowly starting position, and it didn't look like it was going to work out. But because she didn't give up, it did. Now, these few people had faith in themselves, and I'm not using them as examples of we're supposed to be just like them or that they're perfect or they're who we're supposed to be like. But what I want to point out is they had faith in themselves, You don't even need to have a crazy faith in yourself. What we're called to do is have a crazy faith in God, who is powerful, who doesn't give up, who is at work, and who can do it all. That he isn't done working, that he will make a way, that he will keep moving. We're to have faith in him. Do you see what's in front of you, or do you trust in the power of God and what he is doing and what he's working? Do you see the flames as a punishment and a failure, or do you see it as an opportunity for God to move? I think the roar of the Lion of Judah, do we know it? Do we hear his voice? I preached on that a few weeks ago. Do we know it either directly or through community or the Bible or other ways, ideally multiple? When we hear his voice, his roar, it lets us see not with our eyes but his eyes. They moved in faith first, and then God moved. Look at this, church. They had to get caught. They had to get taken before the king. They got bound. They got told they were going into the furnace. Then they got thrown into the furnace, and then God moved. And then God moved. So Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego, securely tied, fell into the roaring flames. But suddenly Nebuchadnezzar jumped up in amazement and exclaimed to his advisors, "Didn't we tie up 3 men and throw them into the furnace?" "Yes, your majesty, we certainly did," they replied. "Look," Nebuchadnezzar shouted, "I see 4 men, unbound, walking around in the fire, unharmed." God showed up in the furnace with them, protecting them, providing them. He showed up. He was with them. They got to experience his presence like never before because he was literally with them in the furnace. And this happens countless times in the Bible. We have to take the step of faith first, and then God moves. The way we're able to do that is by trusting God and who he says and what he's doing, even when our eyes don't see it. But it's after they take the step of faith that God moves. Matter of fact, they took multiple steps of faith in partnership with God. Are you waiting on God to make the first move? Because he already did. He sent Jesus for you. The next move's on us. Do we trust in faith, or do we just do what's easy, or what we want to do, or what we think is best, even though it's not what God said to do? Are you saying, "God, I know what I should do, but only if you move first. I'll speak up if somebody else does first. I'll come to reconciliation if they start the conversation, then I'll move. I'll have faith in my finances if you give me more first." He says, no, be generous and then provision will come. As a church, we did everything we could to prepare before we came here. We counted the cost, we were smart, but moving in faith means you move beyond your ability. That we go where we believe God is leading and we trust. It means we don't always have as much money in the bank account as we wish. It means we had said, we're coming to San Jose, we're coming to downtown, we picked a place, but we didn't have a place yet. And we said, we're going to start in September. No matter what happens, we're going to do it because that's what God said. And we didn't have a place to meet, and we ended up here, and he provided, not when we wanted, after we had moved in faith and said we were coming. It meant that after we had said we were coming and we had been trying to find a place, that we were moving in faith when we had people around us, but the team was not the size that we wished it was. We didn't have as many people as we thought we needed, but we said, God, we will trust you. And by the time what God said to do happened, then we had the provision that we needed for it. We need to hear the roar of the lion and move in faith. And it's after we trust in faith, after we don't succumb to fear, that we actually get to see the lion with our own eyes and not just hear it anymore. After they moved in faith, after they trusted, then they got to see God with them in the furnace. They got to even be a testimony and a witness to the king. And they came out unscathed from the flames. It says you couldn't even smell smoke on their clothes. They came out unscathed. There's nothing better than walking in faith, because when we walk in faith, it's when we get to see God move. And they got to see him move in an incredible way. Preached on this before, but rejoice insofar as you share Christ's sufferings, that you may also rejoice and be glad when his glory is revealed. Because in faith and in trial, we see God show up most strongly. Let me invite the band back up here. We see him. And it's an amazing place to be standing with God and seeing him provide and move. And the amazing thing is, even the king saw what God did. Then Nebuchadnezzar said, "Praise God. To the God of Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego, he sent his angel to rescue his servants who trusted him. They defied the king's command and were willing to die rather than serve or worship any god except their own. Praise be to their God. Not to me, but to their God. What happened? They trusted him. We're to trust him as well. Trust in the Lion of the tribe of Judah. Remember what it says. Weep no more. Behold, the Lion of the tribe of Judah, the root of David, has conquered so that he could open the scroll and its 7 seals. And between the throne and the 4 living creatures and among the elders, I saw a lamb standing. There are 2 ways Jesus is referred to here. The lion and as a lamb. He is the lion that has conquered. He is the lion of the ruler of the tribe of Judah who came as a conquering king to set up his kingdom on this earth, and it hasn't arrived in its fullness, but the kingdom is breaking in, and death has been defeated. And that we're bringing that kingdom here by bringing the love of God and the goodness of God to our city and the people around us, the healing of God, the truth of God, the freedom of God to the people of our world. The lion is here. The lion is making a way, and he's doing it through us. When we talk about the roar of the Lion of Judah, it's the roar of our King, the roar that signals that God is here and he's moving and he's making a way and nothing will stop him. We trust in him and know that whatever is before us, he is in control. That whatever happens, even if it doesn't go how we think it should, he is alive and he's moving, and we're going to trust in him and we're going to stand with him because nothing can stand against him because he is the Lion of Judah. Death could not even hold him down. As we come into downtown San Jose as a church startup, that's the lion roaring here, and that's the picture I got of God saying, I'm here and I'm making my presence known, and nothing can stand against it. I will show this city my love for them. And I'm taking this city back. I'm going to bring people and set them free from their sin. I'm going to set them free from their addictions. I'm going to bring restoration to relationships. I'm going to bring physical and mental healing. I'm here and I'm at work, and God is moving. And the enemy has been put on notice by the roar of the lion, saying, listen, church, don't be afraid, be encouraged that our God is here. And our God is saying that no matter what happens in the battle day to day, the war is already won. No matter the outcome, God is at work, and he is the Lion, the conqueror of the tribe of Judah. Take heart. And as important as all of that is, it only matters to us because of the second half of that Jesus is also the Lamb. He became the Lamb for us. He rose as the conquering king and the lion, but he became the Lamb for us. He gave his life for us. He became the Lamb that was a sacrifice that we all needed. Because we've all sinned against God. We've all messed up. We all need help. And Jesus came and did what we couldn't do. And Jesus came and took the death that we all deserved as the pure, spotless lamb surrendered to God, saying, I will give my life for their life. They've messed up. They deserve judgment. They deserve death. But I will give it on their behalf, and the price will be paid. And he died on the cross for us that believe in him. 3 days later, he rose to life, and it was God saying, payment accepted. Any who believe in him are covered under what the Lamb has done for them. The sacrifice of the Lamb allows us to be under the protection of the Lion of the tribe of Judah, not fighting against him. He becomes our protector. His roar moves from inspiring fear in us because who would want to be his enemy? He is victorious. To saying, to the roar becoming the battle cry that says that we are more than conquerors in him. That the Lion is with us and we cannot lose because the war has already been won. That no matter what happens today, no matter what happens in this battle, no matter what is before us, that God is moving and we are with him and he is with us. We don't trust our eyes, we trust his voice. And when the time is right, we will get to see with our own eyes who he is and what he is doing. Eternity is already guaranteed. We don't care what happens in this life as long as we are with him. So I'm going to invite us to just surrender to him. So I just invite you to bow your heads and pray with me right now. God, we want to trust in you. God, I pray that in this auditorium right now that we would hear your voice. God, even that it wouldn't be in this moment the powerful roar of the victorious lion which is there, but it would just be even the gentle whisper of your voice that says, I love you. I love you no matter how far away from me you are, no matter how far away my people are. I love them. I'm here for them. Pray, church, that you would know his voice and his love and what it means for you. Some of you have never trusted God before, that he sent his son to die for you, accepted your sin, and you've never accepted the love of God on your behalf, that Jesus died for you and that he provided a way for you. So as we continue praying, I want to invite you to just move in faith, to trust him, to say, I'm going to believe, I'm going to surrender to him and trust. This is a room of people seeking God together. This isn't a fiery furnace, even if maybe in the moment right now it might even feel a little bit like one. And I'm going to invite you right now, if that's you and you've never committed to following him, I'm going to invite you, while everybody's just praying right now, to just stand up in faith and say, I trust you, God. I want salvation for my sin, and I'm going to live for you. So if that's you right now, I want to invite you to just stand up and just commit to God. I'm going to trust you. I'm going to believe in faith. I'm going to accept what you've done. God, I thank you for you moving around this room right now. Some of you need to make a commitment that your identity is in God alone and you're not going to just bow in fear. That you will trust him no matter what you're facing, no matter the response, no matter the conditions, no matter what's in front of your eyes, you're going to believe. No matter the furnace that's in front of you at work, at home, with friends, that you are not alone. Put your faith in him. And if you want to make a commitment to say, God, I'm going to trust you no matter what's in front of me, I want to invite you also to just stand right now. To say, God, I trust you. I'm going to stand in faith. No matter what's in front of me, I believe in faith what you are doing. I believe what you're doing. God, we trust you in faith. I pray that you would move and just touch every single person right now that is in this room. And that they would be able to walk forward in confidence that you are with them, even if they don't see it yet, that you're with them, that you're providing, and you will make a way. You will make a way. You will make a way, God. And God, we get to stand in the joy and the goodness of what you have already done on the cross for us, God. May we just accept that. Amen. I want to invite you, if you're still sitting, to just stand up with us. We're going to respond in worship. We're going to sing a song. It's new to our church, but it's called Another in the Fire. I think it's perfect for today. It says, we know that in the trials of our life, that God is closest to us in the middle of those. That he is right there in the fire with us. He is with us. And even as Peter said, we can count it joy in the middle because we know in that place that God is with us. He is with us. He is with us. So put your trust in him right now. If you need prayer, our prayer team is in the back. If you want to participate in communion, that's open to anybody that is a follower of Jesus. That's in the back as well. But let's spend some time just coming to God. Make this prayer be your faith that I will trust no matter what. Let's worship together, church.